This is a fan-generated show. If you'd like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our new Rumble channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Obama's True Legacy: How He Transformed America. There's a reason why Mike Huckabee calls it a ferocious and chilling read. Order it now at Amazon.com or at FrontPageMag.com.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeff Crouere, sitting in for the great Jamie Glazov, and it's my honor to host the Glazov Gang here this evening. I want to just remind everyone before we get started that this is a fan-generated program. Go to jamieglazov.com and support this fine show and all the great work that the Glazov Gang does. And we're going to give you another outstanding program tonight. And I'm very pleased to bring on a person that I have had the honor of interviewing on my radio program, Ringside Politics, many times. He has a lot of hats. He's a worldwide adventurer. He's a bicyclist. He's an author. He's a regular columnist at News with Views. He's also someone who's an expert on population trends and demography and where immigration is going and how other countries are really falling apart and how we need to take action here in this country to make sure that that doesn't happen to the United States. We already see the trends. We need to stop it. So let's now introduce my great friend, Frosty Wooldridge. He's joining us here on the Glazov Gang. And Frosty, welcome. How are you?
Well, thank you, Jeff. And it's really a pleasure to be with you, and also Annie, and thank you. And I hope that our speaking and our sharing brings more enlightenment to audiences around the United States, because what we talk about is very, very important. And during this holiday season, Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and also happy and a joyful Christmas season. And may the new year of 2026 be one with hope and one that we improve ourselves as a country and move forward in solving a lot of the problems. So it's really a pleasure to be with you.
Well, yes, indeed. Amen to that. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone as we look toward what hopefully will be an even better 2026. So, Frosty, you have traveled literally all over the world. You've seen the problems in countries such as India. You've certainly identified in my radio program warning signs about what's going on in this country. Our population now, I guess, is about 350 million. It's grown dramatically in the past century. And during Joe Biden's administration, I would estimate, you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 20 million illegal immigrants poured into this country from 200 different nations or more. Certainly unsustainable. And we're in the process now of securing the border, which is good.
Yes.
Step one. But step two is to remove the millions of people that are here illegally. And how are we doing on that, Frosty?
Well, I think Tom Homan's doing a very, very good job. Tulsi Gabbard is doing an incredible job, and so is Pam Bondi. What I appreciate after seeing the fiasco and the insanity of the Biden administration, and you're correct, the best estimates are somewhere around 15 to 21 million illegal aliens were ushered into our country by Biden. And at this point, we're not even sure he knew what was going on. It was his handlers. And they came into this country. And of course, they came in from countries like Somalia. And you have to understand, all these countries that are failed countries stems from the fact that the people are illiterate. They have no education, they have no Western culture whatsoever, and they simply are unsuccessful. And when you bring all these people into our country, it's just like when you import the third world, then your country becomes the third world. Now, I've traveled through Europe quite a few times. In fact, one of my last journeys was from Nordkapp, Norway. I bicycled all the way 4,000 miles to Athens, Greece. And I got to see firsthand what's happening to Europe. And what's happened to Europe, whether it's Finland or whether it's Norway or whether it's Sweden or whether it's the United Kingdom or Germany or France, these immigrants simply lack any affinity to Western culture. I'm talking about Middle Easterners of the Islamic faith. I'm talking about North Africans and Central Africans that simply have no ability to contribute to Western culture because they have a completely different worldview. And worldviews are very, very important. And one of the reasons that the United States has been very successful for the last 250 years stems from the fact that we brought in immigrants that had the affinity to Western culture, and they had language that came right into English as fast as they got here. And they had religions that were compatible with, Christianity and what America was built on. And they also had the ability to contribute. And so what you're seeing right now is they don't have the ability to contribute, and they don't have an affinity to this country. And so we're looking right now, just over the shutdown that was 43 days,
Right.
they were speaking about 42 million people here in America are on food stamps,
Right.
EBT cards. And that shows you that the kind of corruption, whether it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or whether it's in Dearborn, Michigan, and I worked in Dearborn,
Right.
Michigan
And
for 20 years.
I want to talk about Dearborn in a second, but
Sure.
I want to get back to Europe for a second because
Yeah.
of your extensive knowledge there. And I've been to Europe and traveled around there, but nowhere near what you have. My impression is that we have people coming on board here that don't have any interest in assimilating,
Nope.
bringing different values, as you say, and it's a desire to conquer and to replace the type of government, the type of system, the type of society, the type of culture that is there. And these Western European governments have invited it, have encouraged it, have welcomed it now for decades. Have they not, Frosty?
That's exactly correct. And they're paying a severe price. And I want everyone to really appreciate this quote because it fits not only in Sweden or Norway or Germany or France or the United Kingdom or Finland or Norway, it fits here in the United States. And this is from this man who his name is Ahmad Omar. And he said, and I'm quoting, Islam isn't in America to become equal to any other faith, but to become dominant. The Quran should be the highest authority in America, along with Sharia law, and Islam the only religion on earth. So you can see that Muslims are not here to assimilate. They are essentially here to conquest, and they have been very successful in Europe. You can't even displace them anymore because there's more of them.
How close are they away from taking over Europe? I mean, we see many of the major cities in the UK are led by Muslims.
Yep.
We hear of all the no-go zones in Paris.
Right.
So, I mean, but I still hear that they're nowhere near a majority of the population. So how far are they away?
The best estimates by some of the finest writers, Douglas Murray, a man I have tremendous appreciation for that man. He is a British journalist, and you can get him on, you get him on YouTube, but he's done a lot of interviews, but he wrote a book and I read it. I read it twice. It's called The Strange Death of Europe. And he documents where, Muslims, there are 56 Muslim countries. And so many of them, you have it, and Islam itself means submission. You must submit yourself to Islam and the pillars and everything that goes with the Quran. And as a matter of fact, the prime directive of the Quran is to convert or kill all non-believers. I've read the Quran. I want to know what I'm talking about when I speak about Islam and what it's doing to Europe. There are now somewhere over 120 Sharia law courts in the United Kingdom, in France, and in Germany, and in Sweden. In other words, they're not here to assimilate. They're not here to partake and become a part of. They're here to change our culture and our constitution into Sharia law. That's their prime directive.
So they're changing it. They're gaining more influence, and eventually they'll take over. Just a question of time.
And numbers.
Demography is destiny, right, Frosty?
That's correct. Demography is destiny. And the Muslims really, if you read the Quran, they don't care if it takes 10 years, if it takes 50 years, if it takes 100 years.
Got a long-term plan.
It's a long-term plan. And just in the last election, November 4th, there were 76 major political slots taken by Muslims across the United States in the November 4th election of last year. And whether you look at Ilhan Omar there in Minneapolis and all the
Right.
fraud there was $200 million worth of fraud on the EBT cards there. And now we're looking at, it was just reported on Fox
So,
News with the Will Kane show yesterday,
yeah.
$1.7 billion has been siphoned off
All right.
for autism and other, health issues there in Minneapolis and
Let's,
sent over to Somalia. And now the money's funneled into El
all right.
Shabaab. So they're
Let's
not messing
focus
around.
on,
They're coming.
yeah, let's focus on Europe just for one more second, and then we'll move it
Sure.
to the US. But in Europe, in many of these countries, if you criticize Islam, if you raise any sorts of complaints about this, you could get yourself arrested, correct? I mean, there's no disagreement allowed. I mean, you can't even, in the UK, you can't even fly the flag. I mean, they consider that to be offensive to people. So we're talking about, I mean, some serious situations going on there, and that should be our warning here in this country. We don't want to be emulating this.
We certainly don't, because the First Amendment gives us what we enjoy as a free society. As a
Right.
matter of fact, one of my closest relatives lives in Norway, reports to me every week because we talk on WhatsApp, and he literally tells me exactly what's happening in Bergen right now in Oslo, Norway, which I've traveled through Oslo on a bicycle, and Bergen, and certainly in Narvik, and I've certainly been up there in Nordkapp. Is that they keep importing all these Muslims, and they don't work. They just go on welfare, and they take over, and they start their rape squads. And now in Oslo, 40% of Oslo, which was once 20 years ago completely Norwegian, is now 40%, somewhere around 38 to 40% Muslims.
So I played for my radio audience, Frosty, a UK commentator who said that in the UK, she was constantly in danger, constantly fearful of being attacked. And that she was worried about if she wouldn't get help from the police.
Nope.
That she would be, at the mercy of those attacking her. And as you say, you've got huge numbers that are coming in, and you've got people that are not working. So they're just wards of the state collecting benefits that are paid for by, I guess, the natives that are working still in those countries. But that's not it's gonna last much longer, Frosty. That's got to collapse.
That's correct. It is unsustainable financially. It's unsustainable culturally. It's also unsustainable as to language. And you have to appreciate this. Somebody from Islam and the Quran has a completely different worldview than somebody from Michigan or California or Florida or Montana or here in Colorado where I live. And when you have a different worldview, your mind does not coordinate with fellow Americans or fellow Swedes or fellow Norwegians. You're at odds with them. And the Islamic religion is at odds with just about everyone in the 21st century. And you have to understand, if they were having such a bad time in the countries they came from, why didn't they go to another Islamic country? Well, the reason they're coming to Western countries is to conquest and to change those countries into Sharia law. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. So let's look at what's going on here. Now, when Donald Trump first got elected, he instituted something that was called by the media the Muslim travel ban. Yep. And that created all kinds of negativity and all kinds of criticism. And he didn't reintroduce that in those same words in this term. But I think he has put a hold on people coming in from terrorist-aligned countries, and many of them are Muslim, into the U.S. We've shut down the border. My worry is all the people that are here and what they could be doing. Could there be sleeper cells, terrorist sleeper cells in this country? Could we be looking at jihadi attacks that could be happening in the U.S. sometime soon, Frosty?
There's no question that we're going to be facing internal conflict and terror attacks. You already saw all of the Hamas supporters just last year, certainly the October 7th, the slaughter of the Jewish people in their own country by Hamas. These are Muslims and they're terrorist Muslims. But CAIR, CAIR, that's the Council on American Immigration Relations. As I just quoted you, they're not here to assimilate. They're here to dominate. And I gave you the quote by Omar Ahmad, the director of CAIR. And so, yes, when you get somewhere around 21 million illegal aliens that Biden let into the country, invited into the country, passed them in, you better believe there are terror cells. And whether it's if you go down the streets of the UK right now, or you go down the streets of if you are a native Briton person, especially if you're a female, if you're a woman, your life's in danger, because these people don't mess around. They will rape these women in a heartbeat because that's their culture. And so in this country,
it leads me to ask, Frosty, where the feminists? Where the women's groups? Where are those who advocate for equal rights? I mean, why are they so silent about this kind of abuse and violence, and also second-class citizenship, and the fact that they're not allowed to even show their faces, really, in many countries, have to walk behind the man, don't have the same rights, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just wondering where are the feminists? Where are the women's rights organizations, Frosty?
That's the irony that I do not understand, because if you're a woman in an Islamic country, you can't walk out of the house without a male escort. You cannot wear dresses or high heels. You can't be attractive. You're stuck inside of a burqa or a hijab. You are valued at 1/2 of the value of a man. You suffer female genital mutilation before the age of 9. There are honor killings. And this is a fact. You can look it up on the United Nations. 20,000 honor killings every year committed by husbands or uncles or brothers or fathers around the 56 nations who are Islamic dominated. And here in the United States, now that we have about 4 million plus Muslims, we have female genital mutilation now into the millions, and we have an average of 25 honor killings in the United States every year. And in fact, we were having so many problems with female genital mutilation here in Colorado, we had to make a law, and either it was I think it was $20,000 fine and 5 years in prison if you female genitally mutilated your daughter. And so then what happened is we just went underground. And the problem with it is so many of these girls that get their genitals mutilated and removed, they get sepsis. I'm a former second lieutenant in the United States Army Medical Service Corps. I was also a cardiac catheterization medical tech, so I've got a lot of background in medical. And I got to tell you, if these poor girls get sepsis, because when they do this operation, it's a procedure, they use glass or they use razor blades with no sanitation, certainly no hygiene. So they get sepsis, they die, they just stick them out in the field in a grave, and it's like they never existed. So again, we're importing a 6th century religion that's not only a religion, but it's a political movement that demands submission.
So let's talk about the success, though, that we're seeing in a place called New York City. I know you're very familiar with it. So the voters there, many of them Jewish voters, many of them young, naive voters, many of them disaffected by the economy or whatever, voted for a guy named Zohran Mamdani, who is, to me, a radical Muslim, a radical communist, someone who is a threat to New York and the country if his ideas are followed in other places. What did you make of the fact that he goes to the White House and gets such a warm welcome from President Trump, Frosty?
One of the things I've learned in my 7 decades on this planet is that when it comes down to race, religion, or politics, there is no sanity, logic, or reason. And so the kinds of things that are going on, it's like, why would the women's rights groups in this country not stand up against Islam? Because how many girls or how many women in America want to line up for a female genital mutilation procedure? how many women would line up to get an honor killing, to get themselves taken out by their husband or brother or uncle or whatever? How many gay
Well,
people or LGBTQ people, how many of them would want to go over to any of these Islamic countries
and be
and
thrown
get
off a
tossed
roof
off?
of a
Oh, they get
building.
tossed off a roof, they
Right.
get shot, or they get
But
suffocated. Why?
instead, Frosty, we have the NYPD that is offering for those in their force instructions on how to wear a hijab. I mean, they're now doing demonstrations in front of the force to educate women on how to wear this. So they're
Again,
welcoming it into the force.
and that's the irony of what's happening in New York City. We've only been, what, 24 years away from 9/11. And it says you should never forget, because that was 19 Islamic terrorists and whoever was part of that. And of course, we all don't know all of and you hear all about Building 7 and you hear this stuff, but it was all these Saudi terrorists, Muhammad Atta, and you all remember that. And yet here we are, a quarter of a century later, and the people of New York forgot 9/11, and they elected a Muslim from Uganda who's not even an American citizen. He's an immigrant, and he has no background for capitalism. He hates capitalism. He pushes for communism, or you can say communism or socialism. If you read anything about Marx, and I've read everything about Marx, Hegel,
Right.
Engels, you name it, these people have no understanding of human nature, and that's why communism, the only way it succeeds is out of the barrel of a gun,
Right.
because it doesn't succeed on its own, because it doesn't address human nature.
You
That's
can,
why capitalism is
yeah,
so
you know
successful.
the old saying, Frosty, you can vote in socialism and communism, but you got to fight your way out. Uh, and that's what I worry about for all these cities. I mean, other cities are going to be following the model in New York. The Democrat Party is moving toward the left. They're embracing this guy, Mondani. They think he's some kind of a hero. They wanted socialism just won out in Seattle, a city that I know you're very familiar with.
Yes, I am.
A young woman elected there, really got no life experience, got funded by her mom and dad. And, she got elected as a socialist. I mean, no clue, Frosty, no clue. But that's where we're headed.
That is where we're headed, and where we're headed right now with this kind of naivete. When you look at the American public, and I'm an educator, I taught math and science. I taught at the high school level. I taught at the elementary level. I've lectured at Cornell University. I've lectured at major colleges around the world, around the country. In fact, in Canada, I've lectured up there. The naivete of Western cultures is that we've had it so good for so long. First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, all of our amendments, all of the freedoms that we enjoy. Most Americans, especially the young, simply don't understand what it's like to be in a socialist country, where, like China, or to be in a failed country that has all these different ethnic groups like India. India is a mess. I've traveled to India. Nothing could get solved there. You can go to North Korea. If you did any kind of demonstrations, or you were against little guy Ung, or whatever his name is,
Kim Jong-un, yeah,
Kim
right.
Jong-un, they just execute you. If
Right.
you, when I was in China, I remember it was human rights came in. They were so upset because China had executed 10,000 thieves. Anybody that stole a cycle, or they shoplifted, or did any little thing, it was Amnesty International. Well, this is terrible. You can't do this, And guess what? They said, we had a small crime wave, and the only way to stop it was to execute all these criminals, to absolutely make sure that no more criminals were on the loose. And it stopped them dead in their tracks, and that's how they operate. Whereas here, we just let out a criminal that was like 49 times, some people say 72 times.
72 times. He
In
burned a woman,
Chicago, and he
almost burned her
burns
to
up a
death.
girl.
Yeah.
He chases her down with a bottle of gas already lit, and he should have been in jail for the rest of his
And,
life
and,
after
and
the
here's
first 10
and here's
arrests.
the other aspect of that story that is so troubling. There were people around
Did
who
nothing.
didn't help this young girl. She had to struggle out on the platform, and finally someone maybe saved her life and
Right.
took care of her. But it's just a horror show. So we've got this guy in New York. Let's move over to a place you're very familiar with, Dearborn, Michigan.
Yes, I worked
And
there for 20 years.
a guy that I interviewed on my program today was part of a group that went there to protest what was going on in Dearborn. He was assaulted. He's now got a $200 million lawsuit that he's filed
Right.
because he says he wasn't protected, said that they attacked him for his Christian faith. How bad is it in Dearborn, Michigan, Frosty?
It is very bad. And I watched it because my summer job was United Van Lines. I worked for Corrigan Moving Systems right out of Dearborn. And I was just in Dearborn this summer, but I've been there for the last, I go visit because I have friends. Dearborn, Michigan is literally little Baghdad. The worm riding is everywhere. They dominate Muslim. I think there's 300,000 Syrian Muslims. I'm not sure the full number, but Joy Road, Ford Road, you go on Telegraph. I mean, I've been all over Dearborn. I've been all over Detroit because I moved people out of Detroit. I moved them into Detroit from 1978 right through to 1992. And so Dearborn, Michigan and Hamtramck are no longer American cities. And there was one resident in Dearborn that was about 2 or 3 months ago, walked in and said, I don't want you supporting Hamas, and I want, and no more, I don't want to hear more death to America, because they were chanting death to
Right.
America back in October of last year. And they said, well, you may be a resident of Dearborn, but you're not welcome here. And the reason he's not welcome there is because he's not Muslim. And so, yes, Dearborn, Michigan is no longer an
and
American
I think
city.
the guy told him, I'm going to give a parade when you leave town. I mean, he was just telling him, get out, pretty much.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's in the United States of America. And then, of course, you have a tremendous Somali population in Minneapolis.
Right.
You've got, obviously, representing the state of Minnesota, you got Keith Ellison, who's their attorney general. You got Ilhan Omar, just, a radical leftist. And you have a community there that obviously has political power. I don't know if you saw the police chief in Minneapolis the other day apologized for saying something that might have been considered offensive to the Somali community. So he had to grovel. And I guess he felt that was the only way he could stay in office. So they're gaining more and more political power over a city that is the largest in the state, Minneapolis.
Well, that's exactly correct. And I have friends in Minneapolis. It's called Somaliland. And if you're white and you're an American, you don't dare go into Somaliland anymore. In fact, there was one lady, this happened. I was bicycling across the USA in 2017. I went from Astoria, Oregon to Bar Harbor, Maine. And that was a fantastic trip. And I went right through there. And I at the same time that there was they put a Muslim Somali officer who could hardly read or write English as affirmative action into a police cruiser. A poor lady that was going to get married in 2 weeks, she called in the police and they came over, and this guy, the officer that was driving, was talking to the lady. She came out in a white robe. The Somali police officer shot her right in front of the officer, killed her dead right on the spot. And you sit there and then they would say, well, it wasn't his fault. Well, he is now serving 8 years in prison for unjustifiable homicide. But what's happened in Minneapolis is that we keep apologizing for being Americans, and the reason that $200 million of EBT card fraud was not prosecuted is because that clown, the governor of Minnesota, didn't want to be called a racist.
Right, Tim Walz.
He's a clown.
Otherwise, Tampon Timmy.
Yeah, Tampon Timmy.
Yeah. So you have these populations that are growing in Michigan and Minnesota. What kind of percentage of them are on welfare or using EBT cards? Is
About
that
90%,
something?
about 90%,
Is
about
that something that
90%.
their religious leaders are encouraging? They want their followers to get on government assistance?
Absolutely. It says in the Quran, you can lie, you can cheat and steal to move the Quran and Islam forward and to install Sharia law. And since you are out to conquer them, you might as well utilize all of the facilities that they have and all of the resources that anyone that you are going to conquer. And that's what they're doing in Dearborn. Yeah, it's off the charts. Again, 42 million people in this country are on the food stamp, EBT card, welfare, WIC, SNAP, you name it. Think about the fraud that's going on. It's into the millions and billions of dollars, and it happens to be obviously these Muslims. They're doing the same thing over in Europe. They're breaking Norway right now. They've already broken Sweden.
Right.
In fact, Switzerland has just banned the burqa, and it's absolutely banned any further Muslim immigration because 90% are on welfare there in Europe.
Okay. So when you look at the Somali population, I think the president just issued an announcement taking away the protected status
Yes, yeah.
of Somalians. What do you make about that decision? Do you think that was a wise move?
Oh, a very wise move. Now, personally, I because they don't work, and unfortunately, I've said it on your program before. The average Somalian has a 68 IQ. The average American has over 100 IQ. And so they're not ready to assimilate or facilitate here in the United States of America. And so, yeah, send them back to their own country where they belong and let them be a part of their own country and make their own country better instead of degrading and devolving our country. And I can tell you this, as an educator, the educational systems in Somaliland and Minneapolis totally destroyed, because when you have such a low IQ, you have no academic or intellectual thrust to do well. You're just simply not able to do what it calls for to be an educated student. That's all there is to it.
So another area I wanted to look at with you, Frosty, is Epic City. And that is obviously a concern that many people have, that is going to be turning into another all Muslim enclave, and that could be an area that is going to be growing and growing in population. Now I think Texas officials are worried about it. Texas officials are, taking action, banning the Muslim Brotherhood there in Texas. So what do you know about what's going on in Epic City, Frosty?
Okay, Epic City, and I've been to Dallas many, many times on my journeys across the United States. I've actually bicycled through there on the southern tier. Anyway, the Muslims are intent on creating enclaves that have nothing to do with America. They're creating countries within a country. They're creating laws that are totally alien to our country in their own. And this one, Epic City, is a 400-acre plot that is going to have mosques, and it's going to have a wall around it, and it's going to be only for Muslims, and they're going to practice Sharia law. Obviously, honor killings will be normal, the female genital mutilation. Women, of course, have the value of a man, and all of the aspects of Islam. And so you're going to have conflict. And I think at this point, Governor Abbott has signed a bill to ban Sharia law, but I guarantee you they will ignore it because they've ignored all Western civilizations, all parliamentary laws there in the UK, in Germany, in France. I can go all the way down the list, and they've even brag about it on Islamic videotapes. How they don't have to be British. They don't want to be British, and they absolutely praise Sharia law. And so the United States and all Western countries are in for the fight of their lives, because as the numbers grow, then their power grows, and they're actually using the Constitution for their favor in order to make us submit.
And of course, they're using all the government services for their benefit. Under Biden, they use the lax immigration enforcement for their benefit. And certainly now we've got this major problem that we have to deal with here in this country. As you pointed out earlier, Frosty, in similar in much different situations, dissimilar situations in the past. We had people that would come here and assimilate. So they wanted to be Americans. They wanted to learn about our history, our culture, learn our language. But now, unfortunately, you have people coming in here that don't feel that way and don't want to assimilate. And that's the problem.
Well, it certainly is. And again, it wouldn't be so bad because you've got Chinese in Chinatown in San Francisco, but they're Americans. You've got the Japanese that assimilated into the American culture, and they're Japanese Americans, and then you got Hispanics.
You got Cuban Americans, Nicaraguan Americans, Iranian Americans. You got people that have come here and wanted to be Americans, and we welcome
the problem
that.
is Muslims do not want to become Americans, and so again, you have a 6th century religion that hasn't stepped into the 21st century. And in fact, it's following its prophet Muhammad, who was an illiterate tribesman, and it was a killer. He chopped people's heads off. He was violent. He was a pedophile. I think when he was 54, he married a 9-year-old girl and made her his wife. I mean, this guy had no morals, no ethics, no any sense of just any kind of morality whatsoever. And yet he's now manifesting across the Western cultures and Western countries.
Well, Frosty, the bottom line is Islam is the world's fastest growing religion.
Yes, it is.
Not? I mean, Islam has seen tremendous success in their ability to expand and gain control of more nations. You mentioned 56 nations are now led by Islamic rule, right? I mean, that's
correct.
That's more than a quarter. That's more than a quarter of the nations all over the world.
That's exactly correct. And you mentioned earlier, why aren't the women's group in America here fighting against or demonstrating against Islamic law, or the Muslims, and Sharia law? And for the life of me, I mean, Islam is misogynistic 100% against women. They treat their women so poorly. We in Golden, Colorado, where I live, we have a Muslim mosque. The women go down into the basement and they're separate and lower than the men, and the men go into the top of the Muslim mosque to do their worship. And you sit there, why wouldn't the American women and all the rights group for women, and even the gay rights and the LGBT, they should all be going, my God, we don't want Islam in America.
What about the media? Why doesn't the media report on this? I mean, why are they? I mean, wouldn't you say they're afraid? They're afraid to do so. They're worried about being targeted, right?
Well, the journalism that's going on and the kind of like say my relative that's over there in Norway right now, you can't speak up. And the powers that be have literally kowtowed the Norwegians. And now look at Sweden. One imam has just said that Sweden is going to be the first caliphate of Europe. And it's pretty much, and they're literally telling the Swedes to get out of Sweden. That's what they're that brash. And so if we continue to import them, we are going to become a third world Islamic country.
Do you think if President Trump has success with this Middle East peace plan, if warfare in the Middle East declines, if you don't have the kind of bloodshed you've had in the past, will you see less outward migration to Europe, to the US, if there's peace in that region?
Well, no. I've written 3 books on overpopulation here in America. I published one, Immigration's Unarmed Invasion, Deadly Consequences, in 2004. And it was the 8 Ways to Destroy America by a speech by Governor Lamb at the time, who was my friend. In 2009, I wrote another one called America on the Brink, the next added 100 million Americans. And I showed what's coming. And in 2022, I published America's Overpopulation Predicament, Blindsiding Future Generations. You have to understand, if you do your research and you read my books and you can follow through, and I just use logic, Africa is at 1.4 billion people. They are by 2050 projected by the United Nations to hit 2 billion, okay? They're starving already. They're in food lines. There's wars going on, and Nigerians just killed 62,000 Christians. the Muslims killed the Christians just in the last month or so. And so that's going on. And then you've got India. India's got 1.44 billion people, and they're adding 18 million more people net gain every year because they have no birth control. They just keep growing, and they've outgrown China. And so they're chain migrating into America and Canada as fast as they can. And even China with 1.4 billion is growing by 8 million net gain per year. In my first 4 chapters, I call it the deadliest birth rates for all of humanity. So there will be no places like Egypt. Egypt's at about 89 million. They're expected by 2050 to be 120 million in Egypt. And these are
you
Muslims.
point out,
So they're coming to us.
All these countries that are growing in
Yep.
population and then
Yep.
expanding. Then you have the native-born people here in the United States, native-born folks in Europe.
Yep.
Just the opposite is happening, right?
That's
I
correct.
mean, they're not having children. The people aren't even getting married. I mean, the marriage rate is down. I mean, there's concern about the next generation because so many young people don't want to get married and are not interested in having children. So just the opposite problem among some of these Western nations.
Well, that's true. As a matter of fact, I think the latest birth rates per woman in Europe is averaging around 1.6 to 1.7. We're down in the United States to around 1.8, 1.85, I think, at this point. And yet we're still growing because we allow 1 million legal immigrants. What it was last year was 1.1 million legal immigrants. But those same immigrants, according to the CIS, Center for Immigration Studies, and I know all the people there that I've worked with them over the last 25 years, those immigrants that come into our country have another million. And so, and then even at 1.7 or 1.8 here in the United States per woman, children, we're growing by another million. So if you take 3 million people net gain every year in the United States, that's births over deaths. By 2050, we're looking at somewhere around 75 million more people.
So should there be a total freeze as far as legal immigration coming into the United States? Should we just say, hey, we can't take any more illegal immigration. We can't take any more legal immigration. I don't care if they are computer whizzes or great doctors, these H-1B1 visas that we're talking about, Chinese students that they're saying is going to prop these universities up. Should we just shut all of that off, Frosty?
That's exactly the first point in my last book. Shut down all immigration into the United States. We've got 350 million of us. We got another 25 million illegals in this country. And we don't need another immigrant. We don't need anybody that's smarter. We don't need Chinese immigrants. We don't need Indian immigrants. We don't need any immigrants from around the world because we want to have a sustainable society. And right now, 7 states are facing water shortages, which I point out, and California leads that nightmare. And at some point, we got to drain water out of the Great Lakes, or we got to drain water out of the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
Or we're gonna desalinate the water. That just means we just keep growing, and then the problems will multiply instead of being solved. They get worse.
We got to tell the tech bros and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and all these people that want these H-1B1 visas and these folks to flood in here that's got to stop. I mean, I agree with you. Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to introduce a bill before she resigned to shut it off completely.
I agree with her.
I think that would be a good thing to do.
Elon Musk is probably one of the great, brilliant IQ minds in the world, and I have tremendous respect for him. But when it comes to his advocating for more population growth, he's an idiot. He's an abs. You got idiot, you got imbecile, you got moron. Okay, you got those 3 things. He's all 3 when it comes. I could get on the stage with Elon Musk, and I would absolutely destroy his proponent.
I'm sure you would.
All right,
in our final few minutes, I want to talk about what's going on to Christians around the world. And you touched on it earlier. And I'm very concerned about what's going on in Nigeria. in other countries where Christians are being attacked and persecuted. I think the attacks against Christians going on worldwide is one of the most underreported stories in the world today. For some reason, the media doesn't want to cover what's going on to Christians in many countries around the world. I applaud President Trump for putting some attention on this, but it's obviously something that is continuing, because I just heard this week that you had more slaughter of Christians in Nigeria. So they're not stopping, Frosty. How bad is this problem, you think?
Well, it's quite severe because, again, I think the count is well over 50 million Muslims in Europe right now, and all the different countries where they are situated, and they've moved into, and everybody literally is afraid to speak up. And if you're afraid to speak up and you remain silent, then again, I think it was Edmund Burke said, "When good men do nothing, bad men triumph." And so we've got to speak up as American citizens if we want to maintain our culture, if we want to maintain our language, if we want to maintain that ethos that has made America so successful. I can tell you this, whether it was Barack Obama, who was a Muslim, and Barack Obama is a Muslim, he says it in his books, I've read them, he's a big liar himself. And it's called Yakawi or Yaku something. It's a YKKKI. You get to lie and do anything to subvert any country you're in, especially a Western country, by lying and pretending to be part of it until you can take over. And so whether it was Barack Obama, who's a Muslim, or whether it's Keith Ellison, you better, if it's Rashida Tlaib out of Detroit, whether it's now Mandami, they're all prime directive is to convert or kill all non-believers. And so Christians worldwide are in the gun sights of this very violent religion.
And I do applaud some individuals that I've had the pleasure of interviewing. Pastor Bill Devlin has been one of the ones who have gone to Nigeria, gone to these countries where Christians are being persecuted, to advocate for them, to give attention to them, because obviously the media is not doing it, and it is still going on. So that is a real concern. Frosty, we got about a minute left. Any final comments you want to share with our viewers?
Well, thank you, Jeff. It's always a pleasure to work with you. And Annie, thank you very much. The biggest thing I have found in my life is that if you want to be part of change, you have to take action. If you want to preserve America and First Amendment and the Bill of Rights and all the things that we enjoy, you cannot take them for granted. You must move into positions, whether it's political positions or whether it's the student council or the city council or whatever it is, get involved and make your voice heard, because democracy and a constitutional republic is not a spectator sport. You've got to get involved, whether it's writing letters, getting on the TV or getting on the radio or getting in your city council or your school board. Make your presence known, and that's the best thing I can say for you to be a real American.
Those are wise words, and I would just conclude by echoing that and saying, we need people to take action. We need people to get involved. We need them to contact their elected officials, give them a piece of your mind. One of the problems we have is apathy. One of the problems we have is people not speaking up and just accepting all of this that is going on. And we can't do that if we want to continue this wonderful constitutional republic that we've been blessed with. We got to work to maintain it, and we got a lot of work still to do. Frosty, appreciate all you've done. Frosty Wooldridge with us. A big thank you to our great producer, Annie. I want to thank Jamie Glazov for the honor of hosting this wonderful program. The Glazov Gang, I want to encourage all of you to support this fine program and the work that the Glazov Gang does. Go to jamieglazov.com. Be generous with your gifts during this holiday season so that this program can continue to grow and expand in the new year. And as we conclude Thanksgiving weekend, a big happy Thanksgiving and happy Christmas and celebrations to everyone as we end the new year. Looking forward to a better 2026. Jeff Crouere here for the Glazov Gang. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.